Number 5. Brandon Swanson. In 2008, Brandon Swanson, a 19-year-old college student, was driving back home after a late night of celebrating the final day of classes. Swanson was driving down a deserted road when suddenly he crashed into a ditch. Unable to get his car to work and stranded, Swanson calls his parents to pick him up. Unfortunately, due to Swanson's location, his father had trouble finding him. While trying to determine where he was, Swanson was on the phone with his father describing the environment in hopes his father would be able to locate him. After many hours, there was no luck. Frustrated, Swanson tells his dad that he can see what appears to be lights coming from a nearby town. While walking towards the direction of the town and his father on the phone, Swanson suddenly screams, "Oh shit," and hangs up. His father, panicking, tries to call his son, but there's no answer. That was the last time anyone has heard from Brandon Swanson. Numerous police officers and volunteers searched for Swanson, covering 100 square miles in the process. The result? No evidence. A huge mystery was why Swanson ended the call. What could have made Swanson say, "Oh shit," and hang up? The weirdest thing about it is, when his father would call his cell, it would always ring. What could have happened to Brandon Swanson? We'll never know. Number 4. Bashir Kouchacji. In the 1970s, a Lebanese man named Bashir Kouchacji owned a successful Moroccan restaurant in the Washington, D.C. area. However, this unfortunate man became the target of bizarre phone threats every day since 1983. Kouchacji would get death wishes several times a day for 9 years straight. The caller would call Kouchacji, his family, employees, and pretty much anyone who associated with him in a creepy voice that mimicked a little girl. Things escalated when a Star of David was scratched all over his car. To make matters worse, Kouchacji was still getting threats when he landed in Philadelphia. These events caused Kouchacji to have a mental breakdown. After getting examined by doctors, he was sent to a psychiatric ward to get help. The reason for the calls? It turns out Bashir Kouchacji wasn't a random victim. In 1974, Kouchacji was kidnapped in Beirut, Lebanon by the Palestine Liberation Organization. He was mistaken for a CIA agent and was tortured for 5 days straight. He escaped by attempting suicide, which caused him to be sent to a hospital, where he then fled from his captors. The calls were operated by numerous individuals plotting to drive Kouchacji absolutely insane. Turns out, their plan worked. Number 3. Donna Lass. In the 1970s, Donna Lass was a 25-year-old nurse working at a first aid station at a California casino. Her boss got a call from an unidentified man saying that she would be away visiting a sick relative and would be out of town for a bit. Obviously sounding quite a bit suspicious, her boss calls Lass's mother to verify this. Turns out the story was a complete lie, and Lass's car was still outside her driveway. However, Lass was nowhere to be found. The last sign of her appearance was her timesheet clocked in on her last shift. So, what could have happened to Donna Lass? She only lived a few blocks away from Paul Stine, a victim of the Zodiac Killer, murdered in 1969. The only explanation to her disappearance was that the Zodiac Killer captured her at her apartment. So, the unidentified man was possibly the Zodiac Killer himself. Number 2. William Wallace. No, this isn't the William Wallace you're thinking of, it's a different one. In 1931, a frequent chess player and insurance agent from Liverpool, England, named William Herbert Wallace was given a telephone message 25 minutes before he arrived to his chess club. The message requested him to call from an address across town at 7:30 p.m. the following day to discuss insurance with him. The next day, Wallace made his commute to the address via tramcar, only to find the address given to him did not exist. Flustered, Wallace returned home to find his wife brutally beaten to death. After calling the authorities, the police believed Wallace was the prime suspect, and sent the fake message to himself to have an alibi. However, the man who took the call for Wallace was positive the voice didn't belong to Wallace at all, and a delivery boy also spoke with the victim around the same time Wallace was all the way across town. So, unless William Wallace was the Flash, it was highly unlikely he was responsible for this crime. Unfortunately, police decided to arrest Wallace for the murder, and he was almost convicted, but the Court of Criminal Appeal decided to overturn the case. Number 1. Oxnard, California. On November 22, 1963, a switchboard operator from Oxnard, California got a mysterious call from a woman sometime around 10 a.m. and said "The president is going to die in 10 minutes," in a whispering tone. However, time passed and nothing happened, but the woman still on the phone with the operator said, "The president will die at 10:30. The call ended at 10:25, and on 10:30, President John F. Kennedy was riding in a motorcade to Dallas's Dealey Plaza, where he was publicly assassinated. The origins of the call were never determined, but it may have been a coincidence, or it may have been a prank. We'll never know.